This is the tutorial for how to make treble clefs and time signatures. And those are both really important things in music. Every piece of music needs to have one for a singer or an instrumentalist to know what pitches to sing or how the rhythm is going to flow. It's also the first step that we need to learn. Now, the awesome thing about video tutorials, I'm hoping this is the first one you're watching. The great thing about it is you can stop the video at any time. You can, if you need, you can fast forward if you already know it. You can rewind and watch things again so you can hear me repeat myself 10,000 times if you want, and you don't have to ask me to do it. It's fabulous. So to start with, I like to practice things bigger first, so I actually went to the hold and got a whiteboard and a marker. I actually got 2 markers just so you could see, but if a lot of people are using them, you might want to consider getting just one. Please do me a favor and just make sure that the markers get recapped and that everything gets put back in the exact same place so the next people can find it too, if you choose to do that. If you want to use a piece of staff paper, we have that available too if you like writing small. So if you have a whiteboard, it doesn't have anything on it, and the first thing I'm going to need is a staff, which is 5 lines and 4 spaces in between. So I am going to draw 1, 2, and I'm going to try to space my lines as evenly as I can. I mean, I'm not perfect at that, but I'm going to do my very best to keep them spaced apart evenly. Okay. So if I'm reading left to right, just like you would with a book, and I'm going to start off with the treble clef today, because that always goes first, very first thing on every line. If I had another line of staff down here, I'd have a treble clef here and a treble clef there. Every line of staff will get one. So we're going to take it step by step at first, and then I'm going to draw one continuously without stopping so you can see how smooth it is once you get a good practice at it. So I always tell people we start by making a really long J that starts down here below the staff, and the J part of it is going to go all the way up to the very top line. So I'm going to start, I make my J a little extra curly, that's okay. And I went all the way up to the top. Notice that I started at the beginning of my staff. I'm not in the middle or over there. A treble clef is always going to go at the beginning of my staff. The next step is I'm going to start on the top of where I left off on the J, and I'm going to make kind of a figure 8, but my figure 8's going to be lopsided, so please watch first. I start it and I go over, and I want to go on the side as if I was making the letter D. So I always think when I first start that, I always think it kind of looks like the letter D up there. And then I'm going to go down, keep on taking the figure 8, but my bottom of my figure 8 is going to be way wider than the top. So I finished that. And then to finish off the treble clef, I continue with that figure 8, almost like the letter G. I start to come up, and right on that second line up, I start to go over, but instead of going straight over, I curl it back around both lines. So if you can see that curl, I went up, around, I went all the way past the straight J line, and I made the curl around the second line up on the staff. Okay. So now I'm going to do it in one continuous flowing motion so that you can see that as well. So if I start my treble clef, I'm going to, even though normally you would only have one, this is just practice. So I'm just going to practice right next to it. I start with my curly J. I go all the way up to the top line. I loop it around like a letter D. I keep going. That letter D becomes a wide figure 8 that's wider on the bottom. I keep it going as if it's going to be a letter G, and I loop it around past the J around the second line. It's actually called a G clef, I suspect, because it does loop around that second line, which if you read music is a letter G in music. But for our purposes, we'll call it a treble clef. That is the more common name, and it's used for higher instruments such as the recorder, or for our purposes, the keyboards are only learning treble clef, but real pianists do learn another clef as well for lower music. All right, so next we have to do the time signature. Now the time signature is a little easier. First of all, you only have to write it once on the music. Second of all, the time signature is just two numbers, so there's none of this fancy curly-Q stuff. So the two things people tend to get messed up with when they draw their time signature, I'm just fixing my staff right here, the two things that people get the most messed up with are they make it the wrong size or they draw a line in between. And we do not draw a line in between the numbers because it is not a fraction. People always get confused and they say, oh, this is 3/4 time or 4/4. No, we say 4/4. It's not a fraction, no line in between. So each number on the time signature has to take up exactly half of the staff. So when I'm drawing this, I'm going to start on the top line, and my top 4 is going to go from the top line to the middle line. And then I turn it into a 4. And then my bottom line, my bottom 4, remember, I'm not drawing a line in between. There's already a line from the staff, but that was already there. That it's not part of the time signature. My bottom 4, I start on the middle line, go straight down to the bottom. Notice I did not extend below the bottom. And I turn it into a number 4. So I have a 4 sitting on top of a 4. Okay? That's it. The time signature goes right next to the treble clef.